Welcome everyone to another creative writing workshop. And my name is Laurel. I am the director and co-founder of Educators in VR and the founder of the Creative Writing Workshop. It was started in 2018 and we've been going ever since, exploring all different aspects of writing. We meet every single week. Most like 45 times a year. We meet here in Engage XR. Sometimes we dart onto some other platforms, and we would love to have you join us. It is free and open to the public, and you can be at any writing level. It doesn't matter. We're here to learn and share all about writing because we're a creative and supportive educational environment for writers in virtual reality. We're one of the few, so we'd love to have you join us. I want to make a quick point for people who are worried. We do our main form of back channel communication and support communication during the week in between our sessions is Discord. Discord announced that they are now going to comply before everybody else does. They're getting ahead of things with the age verification. Already there's been hiccups, as you can imagine. So they've contracted with third-party agencies to handle the either face scanning or uploading your ID, picture ID with age on there to verify your age. There's already been hiccups, so I just want to point out a few things. First of all, the company that they in test runs, Planeter, I think it is, the company by Phil. Peter's owned by, sort of in a long distant way, founded by him, but now he's not with the company. But anyway, it doesn't matter all that history. Violated some privacy things, and so welcome, Jay. And so Discord immediately canceled that contract. So be aware that Discord is one of the literally state-of-the-art social platforms and communication platforms around. They are ahead of the curve on so many things. This compliance, I know it's pissing off a lot of people, but everyone is going to have to do this at some point in their lives on every social media and VR and gaming and everything else platform due to the new laws by Australia, France. The EU is working on their own strategies. Illinois in the United States is working on it. Canada's working on it to have age verification before you can access these social media and social platforms, and games and whatnot. So Discord is one of the first to really throw this out. Roblox and a lot of others are doing this in VR. So just be aware that it's going to be a bumpy road. It does not mean that these services are bad. It's just something we have to go through. Discord is setting up an algorithm that most of you, unless you're hanging out in an adult group or where there are children on Discord, will not even know that this age verification thing has happened. So just be aware of that, but they are fine-tuning it. It's supposed to launch in the next month or so. So don't fear it. It's just a bump in the road we have to go through, okay? It's just garbage we have to go through, but it's gonna hit everybody. Discord's just ahead of the curve. All right. On to the writing. This year, we're doing something different than we've done before, and we're having monthly workshops. This month, it's been the writing path, and I hope you all have been having fun with it. I have. I think I'm having more fun than you are. I'm loving doing this as we really dive into how do we take a concept from idea towards the publishing process. And today is the last one of the series. And next month, we have spring break, but the first Tuesday in March, we're going to have our reading event. So get your readings, your original written works ready to read, no longer than about 6 minutes because we want to make sure there's plenty of time for everybody. You can bring 2. That's okay. If we have time, we'll get to everybody. And then in April, we're going to be doing worlds in 3D, really some great deep diving into world building in and around your character. We're going to be flipping some of it up on your head, on its head, your head too, by having a character. Instead of developing a character and putting them in a world, we're going to develop a world and then see what characters show up. It's really going to have fun with this. And then in May, we're doing characters in motion. How do you build really believable people? We're going to have fun. I've also been talking to Stephen here, who's Libo, and he's going to be hopefully doing some workshops for us coming up, looking at publishing and whatnot. So get ready for that. We're going to be doing some scheduling and stuff. So we have a very busy year, and we'd love to have you join us. All right, we have been doing the right path. We did week one was the creative ecosystem, looking at setting up your writing environment. Then we dove into research. And last week we talked about building living and breathing stories, some basic tips. Now we're going to get into what we're calling the drafting machine. Are you ready for this? We're going to have fun with this. Okay. Now, I'd like to know, what is draft? When something is in draft, what does that mean to you? Beth?
Well, you first.
No, I said go for it, Steph.
Okay. Well, for me, it's just putting anything out that's in my head on paper, basically.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Stephen, what's draft mean to you?
Every single version, over time, incredibly boring, until you get to the point that you turn the manuscript over to be formatted. So it's
excellent. That's it.
Increasingly irritating, even if you wrote it, experience. Because you keep making it over better and better, but you're sick of it.
Yes, that's the point. That's the key. And Tang and Kara, you know this too. When you write it enough, and Jay is now getting into this draft stage where you just want to scream, because if you look at it, look at Tang Whistle's going crazy with it. And now Ian says draft means nothing is proofread. Exactly. So let's look at what exactly this is. So the drafting machine stages are, there's multiple layers to this. First of all, it's what I call the download. It's the writing. It's getting that crap out of your head and getting it down on paper or computer or whatever that is. I don't care. It doesn't matter the method. Doesn't matter what you do. It's getting it out of your head. Then there's drafting, which is cleaning the download, which means you're looking for the gaps, you're looking for the missing pieces and the fragments and all these things. And, you had the idea in your head, and then you're reading it and you're going, what, I didn't write it? It was there. I know I wrote it, and there's no words. It's cleaning up the download. It's not fixing it. Fixing it is when editing comes into play. And yes, there's fixing in the cleaning, but fixing is your words are basically there. Now you're really going in and you're honing it. And I think of and then publishing is sharing. Now I think of this as woodworking. So I asked the AI, because I was in a hurry, and I said, relate woodworking to going through the writing process through draft to publish. And it did a great job, because you are starting with a raw block of wood. And then as you go through, now, the words appear, I'm going to twist them around, but as you go through this, and you're honing the wood, you're peeling it off, you're trying to find what's the design in there. You're being Michelangelo with your words, right? You're peeling away at the wood, trying to find what's in there, and then you smooth it and you shape it, and eventually you get to the detailed carving, and you have all the polishing that goes into it, and then you stain and you paint. There's a lot of layers to it. So have I pushed the metaphor too far? The AI is a little bonkers on this.
Actually, I would say, from my experience, this is a particularly good metaphor, because when people write, sometimes they're hesitant to just write everything, the download that comes down. But the bottom line is, if you've really done it, it's a lot easier to cut than to add.
Yes.
And the whole Michelangelo issue is working that way. You really want to just throw everything out and then keep cutting and cutting and cutting.
And cutting. It makes all the difference in the world. So we're going to go through this process, and what we're going to talk about today, so I'm glad the analogy worked, is that we're going to talk about how to separate writing from revising. Okay, very different thing. We're going to talk about how to develop that drafting mindset, which is so important. Okay, and then look at tools and techniques and creating a routine and accountability. All right. This is so important. I want you to really embed this into your brain. Your job isn't to write a beautiful book. It's to write a finishable book. It's to get, or a story, or whatever it is that you're writing. It's to get that story down, and then the future you is in charge of making it art. So I can take that woodworking metaphor even further, but I'm going to stop. But it is about getting that piece of wood, and then really you have to finish with the polishing and painting and staining in order to make it shareable however you want to share it. But it's about making it art after it's out of your head. That's what drafting is. So the goal is to get to the end, and the journey is set in layers. And we're going to talk about most of these. And the first thing you want to do is what's called a big picture pass. And then you're going to go through the scenes, you're going to go through the characters. There's no order to this. You do this as you need to. But so we're going to get into all the details of this, and then you rinse and repeat through the process. I want to define, as we head into drafting, I want to define the concept of a developmental edit. Developmental edits happen from the moment you start writing and telling someone that you're writing something. Not if you're sitting in your room and you're writing, that's not developmental editing, that's just you developing. But the moment that you share it with somebody and you say, hey, Stephen, I'm working on a story about blah, 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 and then Stephen's going to open his mouth and say something, we're now editing. Because that input is possibly going to change my mind, it's going to change my input, is going to help me rethink things. So developmental edits happen all the time. Now there's official term to this. I mean, official as in you can hire a developmental editor. It's one of the things that I have done. And they will take you through the process and you pay them for it. But the idea is to develop your story, identify what's missing, and to really develop that storyline, okay? To get to draft. Does that make sense? Just as a little clarification point? Seeing some nodding? Okay. First step you have to do is give yourself permission to get messy. Now, there is no rules and regulations how any of this works, but trust me, this is the first one. You know, you got to mess things.
Oh,
You need to give yourself permission to make a mess, seriously, because that's how you write. You know, up here on the screen, I have just some of the examples of all the different research things and different techniques I use to try to pull together my story. And I'm writing on everything, and everything I'm writing on, it's a mess. And then now I want to share with you this. My mom and I were working on our family history story, and this is my mother's edit. This is her working towards draft. She would print everything out and then verify things, print them out too, and then cut them into little pieces and staple them to the piece of paper that was matching on it. And I'm trying to read this thing that looks like it's got wings all over the place. And it actually was like 11 feet long. I had to break it into pieces just to take this picture. So this is how we actually used to draft things. We would write it all out and then cut it into pieces. And my mom she went through several boxes of staplers to do this. And I went through a lifetime of ulcers and gray hair. Yeah, not a clever, but you use the method. You know, everybody has their own techniques. And so as we work through these things, I wanted to talk about dividing the writing from drafting, okay? Which we're calling revising here in this chart. When you're writing, you're actually drafting, you're actually pulling this all together, but it's the writing process. And as mentioned, it's the flow. It's getting the things out of your head and popping them back in. It's about you discovering the story that you're telling. When you're doing this, only move forward. You don't have to write chronologically, not the process, but don't stop. Get the information out of your head, because in a split second, the power will blink, something will happen, phone will ring, and you will lose it. You want to just keep moving forward and don't stop. Keep writing. No line editing, no nothing. Just get it out of your head. Turn off that internal editor. Then when you have what you think is complete story, that complete draft, then you start the revising process and you start the drafting machine kicks in, where you improve the story. You can jump around, you can reorder it, you can do all these different things, and then you can go dive deep and you can edit literally line by line, word by word. And that's really important to get all that pieces. So understand that as you're drafting and you're writing that story, that's the main thing. You get into revising the draft, and then you get into editing, which is then you're hitting in deeper. first thing you need to do is separate the writing process from the revision process. It requires different parts of your brain. Writing is emotional. It's creative. It's that you get that flow and you're testing the muse and just really just listening to your inner voice, crafting that story and just sending it out there into the, into whatever format you have. When it comes time for the revision and the drafting, the editing process, you need to turn off your analytical brain. Your creative brain, and turn on your analytical brain. You need to look for consistency and key elements. You need to see, do you truly have a beginning, middle, and an end? A few years ago, I edited a fantastic story, wonderfully written story. I was reviewing for development editing, and I was so caught up in the characters. I was so caught up in the story. And then my husband asked me some questions about it, and he says, honey, I don't think there's a beginning to this story. I said, really? It just starts. He goes, yeah, but I don't feel a beginning, and there's no end to it. It feels like it just keeps going. And I realized that I'd fallen so in love with the characters that there was no beginning and no end. It was just a middle. So make sure you have those key elements that are in there, because you get caught up in what you're doing. Really take time to go through from the big picture view and write up some character sketches. Revisit ones if you've already written them. Make sure that there's consistency all the way up through. If your character has blue eyes at the beginning, they better have blue eyes at the end, unless there was some Marvel superhero touched a magnetic rock, changed them. You want to have that consistency all the way through. Doesn't matter what you're writing, you want to make sure your characters stay consistent. You need to have an event timeline. Just do a document with a timeline so that you know that you've hit all those key points in the timeline, as well as in your plot line, and make a list of your scenes. Now I'll show you how to make this easier on you, because this feels like a lot of work. We'll get there. These become your guideposts. They become the reference points that you keep going back to make sure things are staying consistent. Because as you write, especially when it comes to creative writing and fiction, your characters will suddenly go from long hair to short hair, or red hair to green hair, or eye color changes, or height changes, or gender changes, because you've decided midway that the character needs to be different from how the character started. So after you've written, make a final decision and create those sketches stuff, so you have that reference point. When you go back, you can fix all those things. It's not as easy as search and replace, trust me. And really ask yourself over and over again, what is the purpose of this? What am I, what is it that's going on? We'll get more into that. Okay, not line edits. Remember, we're just capturing the ideas. We're going to polish later, and we want these to figure out all these details at a big picture level. You're going to look for clarity and consistency. It's not the time to start freaking out because you wrote in past tense, switched to present tense, and then switched to future tense, and then went back to it. No, fix that later. That's all fixable later. But go through and look at each scene, think about them. Revisit whatever plot template that you may be using and match the scenes up, just to make sure that you're following the pattern. You have that something, whatever it is that you wanted to do, and track the development of your character. Does your character changed at the end? It's really important. How are they changed? So that you're constantly referencing back on that. Now here's some editing tricks, but I use this during the drafting stage when I'm writing things and can't remember things. Again, don't stop. Keep writing. Use placeholders. I use the XXXXX. How many times you're going to have an XXXXX in your document, period? That's not a common reference thing. You can use any letter combination or whatever, and then I'll put a note in what needs to be corrected or researched later. That's a common trick, and it's really wonderful to do. As you're going back over, also go through those scenes and ask yourself, in this scene, X wants blank, but Y gets in the way. Make every scene in your story matter. Don't put in there for fluff. We don't have patience for flush. We read for fluffy stuff. We readers, we want to read through. We don't want to be busy with 800 pages of what color the flower was. Make it matter. Make that color of the flower really matter and have importance to the story. Eat the smallest detail. Irving Wallace I read everything of his when I was very young, and I started rereading some of his work again. He has an amazing ability to make the smallest details become important. Little tiny details that you wouldn't think about. And there's one, it's a little misogynistic, but he's on an airplane and he's looking at the flight attendant and her nice round bum, and suddenly it gets him thinking about his wife and that he's having a divorce. There's a connection there. Oops, Stephen, are you okay?
I'm fine. Did something happen?
Just heard we had a funny noise come out. Just wanted to check. Anyway, so there's a connection. His observation of the flight attendant connects back to his life. And so those little tiny details really matter, but you need to have every scene matter. So X wants blank, but blank gets in the way. Ask yourself to make sure that those scenes matter to the story. This is something I do all the time when I'm going through, and I will realize that I've left a hole in my writing. Don't stop to fix them. Okay, you don't need to fix every name and every detail or transition. What you do is I do it simple. I'm so brain dead easy with this. I do a big letter A, and then on another piece of paper or file or whatever, I will say A, and then I'll put down what needs to happen here. And that's my gap list, my missing pieces of the puzzle list. Just go through, and whatever it happens to be, you want a detail there, you want to, what was that style of dress or jacket called, what kind of car the person was driving, does it matter? I need to include it. I put letter C, big C, and then I come in. I use big fonts, different things that are, if I'm doing this all on the computer and not on paper, but then I go over C, type of car. Do not use page numbers, do not use chapters, because during the process, you're going to move stuff around. Okay? Page number 32 is going to become page 145 as you do this process. So I just use the letters, and if the things get moved around, A will always be A. It doesn't matter what page it's in, what chapter it's in. A is A, B is B. Keep this simple. Don't overthink this process. When you're looking at your scenes, when you're looking at all the things in here, look for the boring parts. Trust yourself. If you start falling asleep while you're reading, so will your readers. And ask yourself, why? Why is this not connecting? Why is this boring? And look for transitions are one of the biggest killers. And that's that's the thing that many young new writers and young writers do, is that they'll have to tell you every moment of the character's life. I don't care about how they got from point A to point B, but we don't need a 400-page essay on how they got to point A to point B unless it matters. Unless it matters to the story. I mentioned that my husband is reading The Grapes of Wrath, and we're talking about it. And their movement from point A to point B is the story. That is the story. And so that matters. How they travel, what they travel in, what happens as they're traveling, those, the cafes they stop at, the people who see them as they're traveling, those matter to the story. But I'm talking about general movement through the story. Watch for that. Always look for what's the goal, and does this scene support your goal? Okay? Keep the momentum higher and faster, and really prioritize forward motion over beautiful sentences. Makes a huge amount of difference. And if a different scene feels exciting, jump to it. Keep a list of the gaps, just like you did A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And we're getting a little bit of odd background noise from you, Stephen. So just wanted to make sure. Make that list of the gaps, fill them in to help, move things around, but really, really look for how do you move these things forward? Okay, let's get into any questions about what we've been talking about so far? before we get to some of the meat? Stephen? Oh, you having trouble with the button?
It's not working.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry if there was sound behind it. There actually is no sound around me. Let me back up just a second.
Must be rustling noises of clothes or something. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, well, there's two things that I do that are tied up with both the act of creation and the editing part, which is when I sit down to write every morning, my very limited amount, I read the previous chapter.
Right.
And that's very helpful. But fairly often, but not too often, when you're talking about a book manuscript, I go back to the beginning and read it in two ways. First of all, you want to read it after you've forgotten what you were thinking when you wrote it.
Yes.
And then recognizing that our brain processes things differently. You read it and you discover you just left out all the verbs, but you also clicking on to play it back for you. You hear it because you will hear problems. And if you do this once in a while, I mean, even if it's like once a month or something, and you have to go through and read a thing, you'll be able to pick up an awful lot of the inconsistencies, things that don't flow in the early part of the story that became obvious and important later on. And that makes the end process, when you've already got the manuscript finished and you're going through I'm redoing it 10 times, a lot smoother because you've done a lot of that early on, and it has helped the manuscript grow.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's reading aloud.
Well, reading aloud and skim reading and just referring, because you forget about what you wrote. Yeah.
Reading aloud is very, very helpful, but because that's a different process.
Yes, it is.
What you want is to hear it. So you set the computer, there are lots of programs, including Microsoft Word, will play it back to you. You want yourself to be the listener. If you read it, it creates a different process, a different issue.
Yeah. Yeah. There's 1,000 different techniques for doing this, and that's a great one. I took that one out at the same time, but playing it back in the computer, and you can do that. It's free on most of your computers now today, that it will read text for you, and you can set the speed. I like listening at a high speed because I get a different experience from a slow speaking voice, and I'm able to. Sometimes I could just hear things that I missed if I was listening at a regular speaking voice. There's a lot of tricks you can play with that. Absolutely, yeah. Any other comments on this? Because Jay, you're deep into all of this now, aren't you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I am currently just now copying and pasting the last document I wrote, and then it's I might have to take some screenshots. It's a little hard to describe how I'm working on it, but yes, I am.
But you're reading through it and fixing things, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, yeah, that's the process of it. All right, let's get into some of the tools and techniques to help you, because again, it feels overwhelming. Character sketches and all these things can feel overwhelming. So if you choose to write with like Microsoft Word or just about any writing program, has some form of collaborative commenting system. As simple as anything, you can highlight a word or a phrase or sentence and leave yourself a comment and say, this is messed up, please rewrite, research this, check this. Really simple. That's a very simple way of doing this. So know that that's out there. I like to use Scrivener, and Scrivener makes life even easier. So I'm going to do, and this is reflective of ProWriting Aid and many of the other software that's out there. They have very similar tools. This is just the one that I use all the time. And I teach Workshop Planet, so I have all the screenshots for it to help make these points. Now, Scrivener has labels and status. Oh my God, life-changing. From writing in Microsoft Word, or I was working WordPerfect, which I just love for years, this was game-changing to be able to set color code to tell me where, what this represents, give it some symbolism. Is it something to do? Is it something that is first draft, second draft, third draft, final draft? Is it done, ready? Is it sitting here waiting for me, just a blank slate? What's going on with this? You can also set the label. You can set the status. Labels have colors, status don't in Scrivener. I wish they did. But you also have the ability in outline form. Well, let's go through this piece by piece so that you just see some of the things to look at. So first of all, you have the binder on the edge of Scrivener, which is like a file folder that modularizes your work. You can indent it and set it and arrange it any way you want, simple click and drag, and you can color code it for quick identification. So in this example, what's green is done. I don't need to look at this again because at the stage I'm at, it's done. Boy, I cannot tell you what an amazing feeling that is to see more green than red because red are things that are waiting for me, screaming for my attention to work on. So it's really satisfying to flip those colors. So it's really wonderful. In this, we're looking at what's called the outliner view. You can set up the status as well as the label and write a synopsis to help you remember what's going on in here. And you can set the status as to, is it first draft, second draft, final draft? Is it ready for this? Whatever you can create a whole list of statuses. Again, that's like a checklist. I've looked at this, I haven't looked at that, this is waiting for me. This is where this piece of my writing is at. And I love that. Again, this is on other software as well. And then you can add more columns and metadata. I have goal and motivation here. What's the goal of this scene? What's the motivation that's happening with my characters here? What's going on here? And that really helps me as I'm looking back on this or while I'm writing, but usually this happens, checking these things happen during the drafting stage when I'm really starting to move towards editing. So I kind of know what's going on and what's missing and what needs filling. So this is really easy. It's just intuitive. It's a few check marks and it's done. And I can instantly keep track of what's going on. Scrivener has many different views. That was the outline view. And here you have the outline and the corkboard view. And it's in split screen. So I can see these both at the same time. And I can quickly check again those labels and the status and the outline and the titles or whatever. And then I can move things around very quickly. And in the corkboard view, the labels show up as like watermarks. So again, I have another way of seeing this. Every time you see your work in a different way, you find things. You pay attention to things you missed before. Just like Stephen was saying, you have moments where you have the neuroscience of this and the psychology of this process. And whatever helps is good. It helps to handle those things. In a semi-recent version update, Scrivener added revision control. And you can turn that on and off through the settings and through formats. And you can actually go through, like in Microsoft Word and whatnot, and look at revisions. Now, what's different is you can't restore. You have to manually edit to remove these or add these. So that makes it isn't like you flip a switch and we can just change all of this instantly. You have to manually do this because they want it still to be your words. And I hated that at first. Now I like it because I have more control over what choices I want to make in the process instead of having an Autobot kind of, do this for me. One of the biggest game changers, and I have not seen this because I haven't touched Pro Writing Aid and some of the others in a very long time, is Scrivener has the ability to create what are called collections. You designate certain of the documents within it to a group. So it's like tagging. And you can you can do it by plot, you can do it by all different ways. This one, this is a test case I've been working on for years. It's almost done. But it is a collection of different ancestors of mine, their writing and their stories about their childhood in Wisconsin. They each write from a different perspective. So Robert writes from an old man looking back on his childhood. Wayne writes the same stories as if he was 9, 10, and 12 years old. He was an old man when he did it, but he writes from a different perspective. And Noni has a different writing style, and Melvin has a different writing style. So when I'm working on their stories, I can quickly click on that collection, and everything that I've assigned to that person, that author, I see. And I don't see the other people's work. So when I'm editing, when I'm reviewing, when I'm really drafting through this, I want to be and writing on it and whatnot. I want to be in Robert's headspace. I want to hear that voice in my head. Same thing, and you can do plot lines. Plot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can set that up so you can only see plot 1. You can only see plot 2. Really a fascinating way of going through that. So Stephen, does the tools you use have this?
No, nothing at all as elaborate. I've certainly had problems because I don't. No, I write with Word within a pro writing context.
Okay.
But I started off, with banging on stones and stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
Waiting
me too.
for the clay to dry.
Yes. Same here.
I've had a lot of problems because I don't do this sort of thing, though I think this would distract me. But the compromise works for me. Microsoft Word in the envelope of pro writing.
Right. And when I discovered this, it was like, oh my God, where have you been all my life, honey? It was so beautiful because it changed what I was doing to be able to follow a line of thought, to follow through that process through. And it was really amazing. So I don't learn everything. I just learned enough to help me. And this was a game changer. Yay. Now, one of the tools you have also is to set deadlines and to actually keep track of what you're doing as you do it. So Scrivener has all kinds of great tools that will allow you to do project targets and draft targets, et cetera, et cetera. But keep track of, as you're going through, reward yourself for having looked at 40 pages or for the first 100 pages or first 1,000 words, whatever that is, keep track. Now, I love these spreadsheets by Svenja Gosen in Sweden, who did this for NaNoWriMo. And I love, they're so pretty. You get to choose all kinds of pretty ones, but they're free or by donation. We have links to them in our VRWriMo and NaNoWriMo channels. It's a wonderful way to actually convert that from NaNoWriMo to actually be tracking how many words did you do, because it is a slog. This process can be a slog, so find a way to track and reward yourself when you reach certain goals. The calendar is an amazing tool. Work it in reverse. Set yourself, whether it's real or artificial, a deadline in the future. And then work backwards for each of the tasks you need. Some people have to have that deadline. Otherwise, 6 years later and you haven't done anything, or you started out with great zeal and didn't do anything, create some deadlines and list it all out and put them in whatever, set an alarm so the bells go off to remind you and nag you. It makes a difference. Set goals. And again, track that process. When you're working on the drafting part, when you're reading through, there's a creative time of day and then there's a revision time of day. Find out what time of day works for you. Tank, so what's your creative time and what's your revision time? What time of day works best for you, or is it any time?
Creative writing, I love writing at night. Revision, I like to do revisions in the afternoon.
Excellent. Yeah, Stephen, do you have a time schedule with those two?
Nonfiction, I can write at any time. Fiction is always in the morning. And I've thought about those upcoming paragraphs every time I wake up in the middle of the night, which I do a lot. And then I add a little note on my phone. But fiction has to be in the morning. And before I retired, fiction had to only be during academic breaks.
Yeah. Everybody has their own cycle. And so honor it. Find what works for you. And then report in, check in with us, check in with your friends, whatever that happens to be, check in so you can be held accountable. It really makes a huge difference. Otherwise, again, it's going to be 6 years. Nothing's happening because nothing's moving forward. Now, we talked about research, but let's talk about fact checking. Because as you go through you're going to need to identify what needs to be fact checked, because your readers are going to find it. And again, this isn't about fixing it in the moment. It's about making a list to remind yourself later that you need to check this. So as you're writing, keep that research log. Make a note. I just copy, paste, add it in, or I use Zotero. I love Zotero. If we need to at some point, we may do a workshop on it, but Zotero is free. It's a bibliography citation software. I have used it for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. I've lost track. And I literally, with one click, can, on a web page, or I enter in a title of a book, and it pulls it from the database and it fills it right in there. I can tag it, I can classify it, I can categorize it, I can do all kinds of things. But it helps me to make sure that I keep track of my research. But a copy and paste of a link or a title or whatever it is, list of your books as you go through when you reference, just put something in there so you know where to look again, and you're not searching later. And identify what facts you need to do. What are they? Make that list, and always check for multiple sources. Make a note. I found this in the New York Times and the San Francisco Examiner. Okay, two places, good. When you get ready to really dive in there, and because that's part of the creative process is fact checking too, group related things together and book an appointment. If you're doing historical work or anything that really requires referencing the historical information or really doing deep diving, I make an appointment with myself to go down to the blah blah library or the historical library or museum or whatnot, and I collect all the things on my research list to make sure I can cross-check and verify those things all in one go, instead of continuing to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So try to group them if you can, and if you need to, get outside help. There's no reason. If I was doing something that had to do with fantasy and religious things and context stuff, I go see Tang. And I say, can you help me cross-check this? Does this make sense? If I'm working on, know who your experts are around you. Tap into them. They want to help you. They really want to help you. So check in with them on that. Okay, any questions at this point? Because now we're going to get into some fun stuff as part of the drafting process. Any comments, questions? Okay, feedback. At any time in your writing process, you can tap into various forms of feedback. There's human feedback. This is not that group, but there are writing groups that specialize in reading each other's work and giving feedback. I have been through that. I've been through ones that are gentle and kind and loving, and I don't know if it's still going, but there was one in Southern Oregon. It was a way down. People came from like 7-8 different states to attend these like once a month. And it was, how do I describe this? It was so cutthroat. I mean, it was like the Moth radio show meets Drag Race meets, American Idol or something. You would read your excerpt, and then people would get out their blades and their saws and their darts and start ripping and tearing, and people loved it. They came from not my style. I did a few of those and I went, there's blood on the floor, not interested. But if you like that, there are groups out there. There's every kind of group, and your first writing group you go to may not be the perfect one. Yes, Stephen?
Well, let me add a human that people take for granted but don't really think about it. And it's what I mentioned a few minutes ago. Yourself, after enough time has passed that you don't remember what you were thinking when you wrote.
Absolutely.
And that's your first and frankly your most warm and cuddly beta reader.
I don't know.
But they still have an
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No, but they still have
And the
yeah,
only
you still
thought
have some
of
objectivity.
what did I mean by
Yes,
that?
but yeah, I carry knives and bazookas. So I don't know.
Well,
Yes,
that's another issue you might want to talk to a different kind of professional
yes,
about.
I know. Exactly. But do know that there are groups, and there's tons of them. They're on Discord, they're online, they're all over the place on Facebook, etc., as well as in person. Check your neighborhood. Check your community. where I live in around Portland, Oregon is right now is I swear there's a writing group every mile. you throw a rock and you hit 5 of them. There are groups every place. So, some of them are secretive and hidden and quiet, but some are noisy. Do check it out. You can find them. And if you're writing series, and like Tang Whistle does series, and she has a variety of books and things are out there, but look for recruiting fans as alpha and beta readers. And then there's hired editors. Friends and family are not on the editing list unless they're professional editors. Seriously, friends will only say good things. It's really hard to get friends to really have that objective perspective. Now, there's software, which we're going to talk about, and AI. If you choose to use AI, try different ones, and then have multiple personas and multiple queries to pass through. And I was hoping Fustigator's still traveling. He doesn't have internet where he is, but he and Steph have done some amazing work that we're hoping to highlight later about really looking at the AIs and how they respond to things. So I have put the big full picture on our Discord slide, but I've broken this into 2 groups. For software-based feedback, so Google Docs is great if you're going to go for human and make collaborative notes and things like that, but it also has suggestions. There's grammar, same with Microsoft Word and etc. There's grammar tools built right in that can fix a few odds and ends, but that's about the most you're going to get. Twig, Grammarly, and ProWriting Aid and PseudoWrite, they're just a few of the different things that are out there that will help you in different ways to fix the grammar. It gets into heavy-duty editing, but some will work on style. They'll look for pacing, especially ProWriting Aid, and overused words and different things, and where you're getting really repetitive. That can be really, really helpful for just general cleanup and seeing if you missed anything. Now, I'm going to talk about the price of all these in just a moment, but when you're looking for online human interaction, Readz is their professional editors that do collaborative work, and you pay them in a variety of different ways, but they also have some free tools that are in there. They have their studio and marketplace, so you can find some editors in there, and it's of different types, different scale, different size. We've talked about finding an editor in the past. And then there's Critique Circle, which has a free tier, but it also allows you chapter by chapter feedback from other writers, so you're getting peer feedback. Scribophile and Campfire, much the same, allows for human interaction through online at different levels of your writing. Now, when I went through and I analyzed all of these things, and I found that most of these are about $9 a month. Now, some are more, that's an average. Some are more, some are not, but most of these are, if there's a payment involved, it's around $10 a month. That's pretty amazing. And when people think about human editing, they're thinking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars. There's ways to do this for less. So be aware that those tools are out there. Stephen, did you want to add something to that?
Well, something that should be mentioned up here because it's very impressive and kind of combines your first your post up here and the one you had before, and that's AutoCrit. And it has an interesting feature, which, for example, you can say, I want to see if my work is similar to Michael Connelly or John Steinbeck. Yes. And you can pull up a specific author. It's mostly focused just on fiction. And in some ways, it's the most anal of all of them, but it's also often the most useful. And I would absolutely suggest, along with a number of these others here, that people explore AutoCrit.
Excellent suggestion. Yeah, I took it out because it was a little more, didn't quite fit into our general audience, but it's an excellent choice in there. And again, for $100, you could probably get tremendous feedback. So don't worry about this is going to cost you a couple of arms and a few legs. There's ways to do this affordably and to get the help that you need to make sure that when you get ready for whatever the next phase is, you're ready to go. All right. So in summary, always ask yourself, why would someone keep turning the pages here? Why would somebody keep turning the pages? As you're going through and you're looking at this, keep the goal in mind, keep the purpose, keep the focus, really hone in on watching that. Why would anyone care to read this, and why will they keep turning the pages? It really makes a difference as you're going through and you're looking at this before you get down into the deep editing. All right, summary is, again, getting to that end of the story is make sure that you do the big picture pass, that you look at those scenes, you go through and you really do a pass, check that character, make sure the character is clear, consistent, and there's growth, and check the motivation, what's going on here, and then head towards that line and detail pass through, and then get the feedback, and then it just rinse and repeat until whatever that means you're ready. All right, lessons learned, thoughts. Jay, was this helpful? Because I know you're deep in this.
Yes. I can't. I am unmuted. Yes, I like. It did throughout here. I did have the idea. I have taken a few screenshots of copying and pasting the previous. I hate to say draft because it's usually just one sentence, or one description, established characters, list of characters to I maybe listen to some names, engineers, Carl, Joe, Andy, but yes, and then list the actions they're doing. But yes, it is comforting. It does help me to establish an anchor so that I to diminish my writing anxiety. Because I do have a lot of anxiety surrounding writing, but this is gonna really gonna, I think, help unravel that.
Yeah, when what
Does
I
that make
found
sense?
happens, yes, it does. When you have the writing anxiety, whatever that looks like for you, it's really important that you know what your tools are, and you work on a system and a routine, and you have that check-in as you're going through, and checking your progress is so affirming. It really is. I know as Steve has talked about it, you do X paragraphs or whatever it is every day. And if you miss, you give yourself some forgiveness. But if it becomes a week, then you got to get back on the track again and get that schedule back in place. You have to turn this into a habit. And that calms a lot of the anxiety because you're working with ritual, you're working with pattern.
Yeah, I would add there's
Good points,
basically
Mm-hmm.
2 core keys. Even if you don't feel like it, write a couple of sentences and always know when you stop what's going to happen next. Always.
Yep, and
Even if you don't
write that down.
even if you're
going
to the next day you're going to delete the 2 sentences you did the day before.
Yeah.
And that allows you that habit.
It makes a huge difference to build that. Yeah. Tang, thoughts?
Figure out your good habits, but also don't lock yourself into your good habits. If you get into the habit of always writing your fiction late in the evening, but you wake up with a great idea early one morning, don't ignore that idea and wait for the evening hours. Just sit down and write it while you've got the spark is hot.
Nice. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, which is a part of anxiety and is, when you get yourself too rigid, you feel like you can't break, and if you break, you'll break you. You have to be flexible with this. This is about art. This is about creativity. Okay. Ian, thoughts?
I think nice drafts deliver good stories.
Yes,
it
they
depends
do.
on the drafts.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And that's part of the part is that it's about the craft. You can write crap to begin with, and then you craft it into beautiful stuff. Yes. Yeah. Steph?
I can't top that. But I think that getting into an environment like we did here with this writers group, where you can bat around an idea or, stand up and present it and see whether it flies, is probably the best way that you can figure out whether you're being understood or not, which is one of the things that anxiety, I think, it causes anxiety, is the idea that you're going to try to communicate something that isn't going to be understood. And that's a worry. And you can get over that just by running it up the flagpole a few times, if not amongst strangers and amongst friends, and just make sure that they can understand you and it's working out well, and you're communicating what you intended to communicate. Once you do that, you can start getting to discover your flow. And once you discover what causes that flow to happen, or what best time of day or whatever, you're not home free, but you're definitely more than halfway there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Any other last thoughts? I hope this was helpful. So we haven't dug that deeply into, we've done some digging in this wonderful creative writing workshop, but I hopefully that, this was some new territory that was helpful. So this is the end of month 1 with The Right Path, and all these are on YouTube. And it will be thanks to Stan Trees for filming, and he's going to upload the video links and such into our writing lessons channel in our creative writing workshop Discord, which is at the bottom of every one of the links in the slides here. And I hope you had some fun. Now, next month we have the first week we have our reading event. I always love that. So please bring your original writing, some excerpts, whatever it happens to be, and share it with us. And then we're going to be taking our break for Daylight Saves Time, our spring break. And we're back in April with Worlds in 3D, really looking at building worlds that we can put characters in and watch what happens when our characters are in those worlds. We're going to have a great deal of fun. Maya's characters in motion, really building believable people. And we have a whole year worth of just amazing things that are happening. So get ready for that. And we meet every Tuesday right here in Engage XR. We love Engage XR every Tuesday. So come join us and jump onto our Discord, and we'd love to have you get more involved. Thanks, everyone.